the globalist stakeholders, like China has. The high-ranking Chinese members and the CCP will have a stake in your ass. That's what it's all about.
Independence, a critical and unacceptable red line for Beijing. President Biden has said 3 times that Washington would defend Taiwan in the event of a war. The most recent comment came last September.
Taiwan makes their own judgments about their independence. We are not moving, we're not encouraging their being independent. That's their decision.
But would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
So unlike Ukraine, to be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women, would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion?
Yes.
The White House walked back the statement afterward. Following the interview, the White House said U.S. policy hasn't changed, adding that Washington wants to see Taiwan's status resolved peacefully, but doesn't say whether U.S. forces might be deployed in response to a Chinese attack. Other than Lawler, Congressman Guy Reschenthaler also says the U.S. should be making it very clear it would defend Taiwan. And Senator Lindsey Graham told Fox News that he's open to using U.S. forces to defend Taiwan because it's in America's national security interest.
Businessman. The billionaire was found to have ties with the Chinese Communist regime, and the donation was allegedly meant to influence Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. In a statement announcing the resignation, the Trudeau Foundation said the political climate surrounding a donation received by the foundation in 2016 has put a great deal of pressure on the foundation's management and volunteer board of directors. The board added, the circumstances created by the politicization of the foundation have made it impossible to continue with the status quo. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he has, in his words, no intersection with the foundation.
Canadian lawmakers have been calling for probes into allegations of Chinese election interference. The Trudeau Foundation said it would return the donation amid the recent controversy. The Trudeau Foundation was created in 2001 to promote research in the humanities. It was founded by friends and family of Justin Trudeau's late father, former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. 3 directors will remain on board the foundation for the time being.
It says China may use the attacks as a way to accuse NATO, a U.S.-led military alliance, of being the aggressor. That would pave the way for more Chinese aid to Russia. The document says this may happen if Ukraine hits strategic locations or targets Russian higher-ups. It goes on to say that if weapons from the West, namely those from America or NATO, are used, China may use the information to claim Washington is directly involved, adding that China could use that to justify sending lethal aid to Russia. Beyond that, the documents contain intel on China's Navy and its development of weapons. Those are hypersonic glide vehicles classed as ballistic missiles. The leak revealed that they have a high probability of evading American missile defenses. What's more, these documents also outlined the first deployment of the Chinese Yushen LHA-31 assault ship that carries helicopters. As for Russia, the documents describe the extent that the U.S. has infiltrated Moscow's Ministry of Defense and the Wagner mercenary group.
China's foreign ministry ramping up pressure on Germany. Beijing is calling on the country to, in its words, be objective and rational. That's as Berlin reviews.
But they're far less motivated when it comes to actually protecting their constituents' interests. They write angry letters or make appearances on Fox News, pretending to care about their constituents while doing nothing of actual substance. And so it is that we arrive at a place where the leading conservative contender for the 2024 presidential election finds himself under legal attack from a leftist Soros-funded DA. A political witch hunt designed to openly and directly influence the outcome of our upcoming presidential election. Forget about using a fabricated Russia collusion narrative. The DNC now operates openly and with impunity to alter our elections. And the GOP is letting this all happen. Optically, the GOP reluctantly fell in line behind Trump, but only after it became painfully clear that it would be too politically costly not to do so. Although it can be easy to forget, It's worth remembering that in 2016 and into the first years of Trump's presidency, some of his fiercest political resistance came from members of his own party. Some GOP members attempted to build careers on a Never Trump platform. In mid-2017, it wasn't entirely clear the Trump presidency would even survive due to a lack of GOP support. And it was the same GOP that enabled the appointment of Special Counsel Mueller and allowed his investigation to engage in a slow-motion political witch hunt, picking up where the FBI had left off.
Both sides are agreeing on the appointment of Mueller, a rare moment of bipartisanship here. Both Democrats and Republicans describing him to me as a real pro with solid credentials. Even those Republicans who said this wasn't needed aren't objecting, Robin.
So pretty much Democrats and Republicans in agreement over this.
During the lead-up to the presidential election in 2020, the GOP stood idly by, or worse, they actively supported Democrat initiatives and policies that ultimately cost Trump the presidency. The GOP did nothing to prevent our nation's electoral system from being flooded with tens, if not hundreds of millions of mail-in ballots, despite ongoing warnings from conservatives. They did nothing to prevent ballot harvesting, nor did they respond with any in-kind efforts of their own. Perhaps most importantly, the GOP allowed numerous unconstitutional changes to our election laws in battleground states during the run-up to the 2020 presidential election.
At the time, cannot claim. It also can't be an Espionage Act issue, since the Espionage Act does not prohibit the retention of classified documents. So that leaves only one issue, which is the potential obstruction of justice charge, which we reported about before. And it is the only issue that might have some legal teeth, although most likely not for Trump, but perhaps for one of his lawyers. What happened was that the DOJ set a trap by demanding via subpoena that Trump turn over any documents marked classified. Not classified, marked classified. As we now know, not all such documents were in fact turned over, and some were later found by the FBI during the August 8th, 2022 raid at Mar-a-Lago. So Jack Smith is reportedly trying to tie that failure to turn everything over around Trump's neck. Now, did Trump personally tell his lawyers not to turn everything over as per subpoena? Perhaps he wanted to keep some memorabilia and thought there wouldn't be a raid. Anything is possible, but that does seem like a pretty big stretch. The lawyer concerned, Evan Corcoran, recently appeared before Smith's grand jury. We don't know what he said. Did Corcoran throw Trump under the bus like Michael Cohen did years earlier? Again, that seems very unlikely. So there you have it. Those are the Trump cases, which, unsurprisingly, add up to a big nothing burger. But of course, given that it is Trump, and given the rabid hatred so many people in the ruling class have for him, we shouldn't be surprised if something new pops up from left field. Thanks for joining us in today's episode of Truth Over News.
Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci, many times said, I am the science, and if you are vaccinated, the virus is a dead end.
But they're really criticizing science, because I represent science. That's dangerous.
So, or he knew, or he is not the science. I don't believe in the science. Science should be questioned. Science that cannot be questioned is just propaganda. But, of course, they knew.
So, what happened after that? So suddenly there's this revelation. How do your fellow European Parliament members and politicians respond?
Yeah, it was amazing. I received a lot of positive response, maybe 60%, but there was also a lot of negative response of the people who were in this narrative and who maybe felt fooled for all this time, but didn't want to admit. But people, so it was so nice. People of the cleaning service
Utah over the years, but I mean, a lot of it is just a discipline to continue to get it right each and every year and make even small improvements year over year to stay at the top. And it's an incredibly competitive top when you've got states all across the country looking to cut taxes, become more competitive, grow jobs, and grow their population bases. Utah's, for whatever reason, been able to stay ahead for now more than a decade and a half. And I think, a few of the reasons that we point to in our report, and obviously there's many reasons why Utah does well, but, coming to some of the big ideas are, they've been cutting taxes aggressively now for over a decade and a half. They've already had a flat tax that they put in place just at the start of the Rich States, Poor States rankings in 2007, 2008. They continue to reduce that rate. They've also reformed their pension system, which is something that these massive unfunded liabilities that we document annually at ALEC total in the trillions of dollars, and they threaten bankruptcy for states like Illinois and others that we've talked about before. Utah's moved towards a 401k style portable individual or retirement account approach for their state workers, and it's really taken so many of these liabilities off the books for Utah. And then finally, an issue that all of us have been seeing huge upticks in our property taxes over the last several years because of assessments going up all across the country. Utah has been at the tip of the spear at trying to solve that issue. And it's something that we brought at ALEC to really make it model legislation. It's called their Truth in Taxation Law, which gets to the bottom of this thorny issue of property tax increases going up all across the country. So those are a few of the reasons. There's lots more reasons, but Utah's another economic powerhouse story this year in Rich States, Poor States.
Now, I'm based in New York, but unfortunately, it seems like by the ranking, it's at the bottom. What is it doing differently?
Well, the New York story hasn't changed a lot over the years. New York has been either 50th or 49th every single edition of Rich States, Poor States. And you don't have to have us to tell you what's the reason. New York is a anti-business, high-tax environment today. And that's why you've seen hundreds of thousands of New York residents vote with their feet, as we like to say, and go to one of the other 49 states. New York has been at the forefront of this out-migration, both from the city and from upstate and other parts of the state. And a lot of that reason is the New York budget is bloated. It spends far too much per capita. And, of course, spending drives tax burdens at the state level. And this is something that New York needs to get under control.
Now, on an individual basis, the people living in the states that are ranked higher, what does it mean for them?
Well, I think it means hundreds, if not thousands, more in their pocketbooks every single year. And that's something that we've seen as the states that have become most aggressive at cutting taxes. In the last 2 years alone, we've seen almost half the states dramatically reduce their personal income taxes. And really, this tax-cutting revolution has taken on across the states, and that these surplus revenues that we're seeing based on either federal dollars or natural surpluses have really given at least half the states this ability to become much more competitive, whether that's reducing property taxes at the local level through things like the Truth in Taxation idea I talked about, reducing sales taxes like in South Dakota where they don't have an income tax to cut, so they had to cut something else, and that was the sales tax, or they're going down the road of cutting income tax rates. And so what that means for the individual is better job opportunities. We're seeing companies relocate from California and New York to other states and move their headquarters or their manufacturing operations. At the end of the day,